Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is the Mad Knives, a 5-album, 5-movie sci-fi concept project, and today we're doing an episode from the Story series. This is the very last song on the album, and it is entitled We're Gonna Be the Mad Knives. In this one, the mechanic finally wakes up. Show the logo, play the music. Okay, this is the very last song of the album, so let's do a little bit of a recap to catch everybody up. There was a rogue incoming planet discovered that was on a certain collision course with Earth. Because of this fact, humanity decided to build millions of homemade spaceships to escape the collision. We all make it off Earth successfully, but we don't get far enough away, so when the planets actually do collide, all of humanity's spaceships are exploded backwards into deep, deep outer space, and so far apart from each other that they can no longer communicate. After this happens, the pilot aboard our ship decides to initiate emergency protocol, which includes brainwashing to keep everybody calm and compliant. After the emergency protocol is initiated, the crew aboard our ship, the Radio Flier, all start to lose their minds as they project crazier and crazier sounds into deep outer space, trying to get in contact with anybody who survived. At this point, they have decided to turn the ship back around and head back towards the place where Earth was supposed to be. And they're all just getting a little wacky as this happens. So that caught us up to where we are in the story for the most part. Before I get started talking about this song, We're Gonna Be the Mad Knives, let's go ahead and listen to a short audio clip from the demo. Okay, that's what it sounds like. So let's get started talking about the story. This is very exciting. The very last song of the first album, just sort of wrapping things up for this portion of the story. So we get right into it. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the mechanic finally awakens. So the start of this video is from the mechanic's perspective. So remember, they've been sort of in a coma, passed out in the medical bed for this entire thing, everything that's happened so far. So they know nothing about what happened after humanity got off Earth. They know nothing about the disasters that have taken place so far, and they haven't been brainwashed at all because they've been totally passed out. So the first thing we see is from the mechanic's point of view, and it's the pilot sort of leaning over them as they wake up, and they're staring at the ceiling of the Radio Flier. And what happens right away is the pilot starts to give the mechanic a little tour of the ship, kind of. But it's clear that the pilot has gotten pretty wacky, pretty out of it. So the pilot is walking the mechanic around the ship, introducing them to what's going on, and let's call it gives a tour. So sort of like showing the mechanic around the ship, saying really crazy things, like one of the lines that the pilot delivers is, "Smoke 'em if you got 'em, ash 'em in the sink." The pilot has just totally lost the handle, but they're showing the pilot showing the mechanic around the ship, showing them the cockpit, and as the camera pans around, we see the rest of the Mad Knives singing backup vocals, sort of gathered around a singular microphone over by the radio transmitting station. I imagined it kind of like they all look like the Beach Boys singing in the studio, sort of. And the pilot is just showing what's going on and describing what's, not the whole situation, but describing that they're heading back towards the Earth. And we see also, as the camera's panning around, that the Mad Knives have been sort of picking up space junk as they go. So back in the mechanic's bay, once they get back to that section of the ship, there's sort of like a bunch of stuff on the mechanic's workbench that could be useful or that needs to be fixed. And we're also seeing that the ship is kind of in disarray. Things have gotten messy and like just sort of partially broken, and everything is sort of out of place inside the Radio Flyer because, let's just call it, the Radio Flyer is a mess. Because the mechanic has been passed out this entire time, and it's the mechanic's ship, and it's the mechanic's job to repair anything that goes wrong on the ship. So anything that's broken, the rest of the Mad Knives have done their best to sort of like duct tape it back together and just sort of get it all working. But nothing is fixed the way that it should be because the mechanic has been passed out this entire time. And we're starting to see like the background vocals that the rest of the Mad Knives are singing. The actual lyrics are, "We're going to be the Mad Knives all our lives." So they're sort of like describing that they've totally lost it, and everybody has decided that they're the Mad Knives, and this is just what they are, and this is the world as it is now, and everything that's gone wrong or is going wrong is just the way of things. And this is all part of the brainwashing that's been coming through the emergency protocol. It was meant to make everybody just sort of accept everything and feel a little wacky. But one thing to remember is that the doctor, she has been avoiding the brainwashing as much as she can. So while the rest of the Mad Knives are acting kind of crazy, the doctor is playing along so she doesn't get found out. But she's sort of now waiting for a moment where she can tell the mechanic what's going on and describe what's actually happening to everybody else on the ship. But again, the mechanic knows none of this. So there's a very cool part in the middle of this song that I have planned for the video where there's a dance break. And this is really fundamental to how the mechanic is introduced to us, and it's foundational to the way that the mechanic operates from here on out. So if we remember, I've mentioned a few times about the mechanic. They've been kind of a mystery this whole time, and you may have noticed that I'm not calling the mechanic he or she or anything like that, because that character is meant to represent the audience. That's you. So we don't know anything about really what the mechanic looks like or what type of person they are, because it's meant to be anybody. And that is going to be maintained throughout all of the rest of this story. The mechanic is mysterious, but the mechanic is everybody. So during this dance break, the rest of the Mad Knives are doing the dance that they learned in the brainwashing video from a couple of songs ago. And it's the same dance, and they're doing it because they're brainwashed, and it's just kind of like what they've been told to do. The doctor is playing along. But the mechanic is witnessing this dance break after a whole song inviting the mechanic into the Mad Knives and, sort of like showing them the ship. And the mechanic has a choice now watching this dance. Do I join these people? Do I become a part of this group? And the mechanic decides to. As you would imagine, like, what else are they going to do, really? They're stuck in this spaceship, lost in deep outer space, and they have no idea what's going on. So they decide to join the group. And the mechanic watches the dance moves and then joins the dance moves. And that is really the last third of this song, and the very last thing that happens in the entire first movie and the entire first album. So what we have here is basically this first album is an origin story for the Mad Knives. Like, that's the best way that I can explain it. For the Mad Knives. It shows you what happened, how they got there, what shape everybody's in, how they came together. So at this point, we've got the pilot and the co-pilot and the farmer all brainwashed, all totally brainwashed. In the last song, we saw the doctor trying to comfort the farmer because the farmer has completely lost the handle on everything. And the roles between the doctor and the farmer have kind of switched at this point. She is now taking care of him. And then now we have the mechanic who is not brainwashed at all, but also unfortunately hasn't witnessed anything that's happened in this story. So the mechanic is really has a lot of catching up to do. But the last thing that we see in the whole first album and the whole first movie is the 5 of them, all 5 Mad Knives, and they are in unison dancing, showing that they are now a group. Everybody has been assembled, and in albums and movies 2 through 5, these are the characters that we're going to be following. So sort of like a little bit of a triumphant moment, even though things are really still not solved. Like, the ship is still headed back towards the rendezvous point where Earth would have been, where they were supposed to go back and start to rebuild the mechanical Earth. They still haven't been able to get in contact with any other ships or any other survivors, but we now have the true base of the rest of the story. All 5 of the Mad Knives. We know why they've gone mad. And that's the end of the first album and the first movie. They're singing, "We're going to be the Mad Knives all our lives. Come and play with the Mad Knives if you survived." Just heading back towards a hopeful place of unification, looking for other people as they go. And we're not going to know what happens until I get to make the second album. So okay, that's the whole story. That's all 10 songs from the first album. I think next week I'm going to attempt to do a wrap-up episode doing the whole story arc from the first album all in one video. That's going to be challenging, but that's my attempt for next week. And then that'll be the ending of the story series. And we'll be going into some new things for the deep dives on the YouTube channel. So, all right, do the likes and subscribes if you want to. You can stay up to date with all the videos coming out. Otherwise, I'll put the internet links and stuff down below, and thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.